Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. It's Russell with Ink and Paper Blog. How are you doing today? Happy Sunday. I hope your guys' weekends have gone fantastically and they're wrapping up and you're getting lots of reading done, or you have some reading planned, or that you just did something that makes you happy. Today I'm coming to celebrate the fact that it is Women's History Month. There is all sorts of amazing stuff going on right now. You know, the Women's Prize announces their long list tonight. I've already done a video where I've sort of talked about the books that I hope to see on that list. And today what I thought I would do is I would make some recommendations if you're looking for some women novelists to read over the month of March. And I'm kind of breaking it down into two sections. So the first section is what I'm calling my 5 books, my 5 women essentials. 5 books by 5 women writers that I just think really everybody should read. Now, let's be honest, this list is not definitive. It could have been 100,000 bazillion books. Let's be honest, there are so many amazing books by women that could have fit into this section. But when I started thinking about this topic, these were the 5 that sort of popped into my head. Well, the authors popped into my head. Some of them have vast catalogs and I've tried to mix it up so I get you guys some new titles on my channel and don't always rave about the same books over and over again. And then the next section is going to be 5 more books, but they're going to be 5 books that I have been meaning to read or on my TBR, or one is actually not out yet, but it's something that's coming out this month that I think sounds really exciting and interesting. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first 5 books I'm going to talk to you about, I put in chronological order just by publication date. And the first one, if you have watched my channel, is going to be no surprise, and that is Their Eyes Are Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. I love this book. I have even read you guys the first paragraph. I have talked about this book because I think that it is a cornerstone of American literature. This is the story of Janie. Janie is a woman who falls in love with and has relationships with 2 different men. And really this is a book about how that takes her life in different directions and sort of how she deals with what life throws at her. A couple things. This book is beautifully written. I'm telling you right now, I think the first page is utter brilliance. And there is just a real sense of culture and real sense of person. And the dialect is challenging and interesting and really, it's just really real. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. I absolutely love this book. I think about it all the time. So this is Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. This is actually the same copy I got given to me in 11th grade when I read the book for the first time. So there you go. Definitely pick that one up if you haven't. Next, we're going to go over to England, and we are going to talk about one of my favorite authors of all time, Miss Barbara Pimm. Now, Barbara Pimm, I could have picked any of her books, but I'm going to go with sort of the book that relaunched her career. So if you guys don't know anything about Barbara Pimm, she wrote in the 50s, 60s, and I want to say the 80s. She had sort of a time where she was really popular, and then she sort of died off, and then Ted Hughes, who was the poet laureate of the UK at the time, I believe, mentioned how Barbara Pimm was one of the greatest living writers in the UK that no one was reading, and it sort of relaunched her career. Rightly so. She's freaking brilliant. A lot of people call her sort of like a more modern version of Jane Austen. She writes a lot about spinsters, 30-year-old old women, which you know I absolutely love everything about that. But I'm going to sort of talk to you about the book that relaunched her career. And this is sort of the US version, the Quartet in Autumn by Barbara Pimm. Now, I also have this edition right here. I was lucky enough to find all of Barbara Pimm's books in this version at my local used bookstore for 99 cents each. So I have them all on my shelf. They're used, they're read, but I just absolutely love this cover. So this is sort of the one you can find in the US most readily. This is the story of 4 elderly people that all work together, and the 2 women in the quartet decide to retire, and how that changes the dynamic for all 4 of them. It's worth every minute of every time that you open this book, you guys. Quartet of Autumn by Barbara Pimm is one of my favorite books. She is probably best known for Excellent Women, but to me, I think this is a stronger novel. It also deals with age, which is something she was dealing with at the time that she wrote it. I want to say, I believe that this was shortlisted for the Booker as well. So if all of that does not get you to want to read it, just do it because I said so, because it's amazing. And that is Quartet in Autumn by Barbara Pimm. 2 versions here. There you go. Next is the amazing, fantastic Margaret Atwood. I could have picked so many books. Handmaid's Tale, because we're all so excited about the sequel that is coming out this year. I could have talked about Oryx and Crake in that trilogy. I could have talked about The Blind Assassin, which won her the Booker Prize. But I'm going to talk about the Penelopiad because there's just been sort of a year of Greek myth retellings, and this was, to me, one of the first ones that I read that I thought was utter brilliance. This is the story of the Odyssey from the point of view of Penelope, told by Margaret Atwood. I don't know if you need anything more than that because it is as brilliant as all of those sound. You could read any Margaret Atwood. I haven't read all of her. She has quite a vast catalog, but everything I've ever read, I have absolutely loved. Well, actually, that's not true. I did not love the one about with the Elvis dolls. You know what I'm talking about. But I do think she is an amazing writer, and I think that she is still living today, producing amazing work, is just a testament to her brilliance. So this one is the Penelopiad, a retelling of the Odyssey from the point of view of Penelope by Margaret Atwood. Highly, highly recommend it. The next author, again, will not be a surprise to any of you that she is in this pile, and that is the phenomenal Toni Morrison. Now, I have talked about I have talked about Song of Solomon. I have talked about Beloved. I have talked about Sula. I have talked about The Bluest Eye. I have talked about a lot of Toni Morrison, so I'm jumping way to the end of her catalog, stuff that she has written more or less recently, to this novel, which is God Help the Child. All of them are worth your time, you guys. She is freaking brilliant. And if you haven't watched sort of her live to or speak, she has a new collection of essays out you could get into. All of that. But God Help the Child actually is an interesting novel because this is the story of Bride. And Bride is this beautiful woman, this beautiful black woman with deep black blue skin is how she's described in the book. However, when she is born, her mother doesn't believe that she could be her child because she is light-skinned, and she sort of does not want to own the fact that Bride is her daughter. Now, Sweetness, who is her mother, deals with and the book deals with this ongoing theme of internal racism within the African-American community. Bride is a successful woman, but she deals with all sorts of misconceptions about her because of who she is and how she presents. And she also deals with relationships with men, relationships with her mother. Toni Morrison can write 4 sentences and just blow you away. And her author photo, I just love her so much. So again, you could read any of the Toni Morrison books that I've ever talked about and definitely be worth your child. But don't forget that she is still publishing relevant, amazing work like God Help the Child. There you go. I really like A Mercy too that came out recently. This one and the last one in this list is an author I think when I am in my 70s, we are still going to be talking about. Because of the work she is currently producing. And that is Samantha Schweblin and her novel Fever Dreams. This is translated from, I want to say the Spanish, because I always get that right because I can't remember. Megan McDowell. She's the one who translated this. So, Fever Dream, Samantha Schweblin. This is a crazy book about a woman in a hospital who is very sick. And we sort of vacillate through time as we come to understand what has made her ill. And also, she is dealing with something that happened to a young boy who is someone that she is talking to on her in her illness. That makes more sense. I think this book, ever since I have read it, has stuck with me as something that I cannot stop thinking about. It is challenging and interesting and intricate. She has a new collection of short stories out that I've heard nothing but phenomenal things about. Fever Dream actually won the tournament of books, I want to say last year, so definitely people love it. And I really think Samantha Schweblin is one of those authors that is going to stand the test of international literary fame when it is all said and done. So there you go. That's 5 books. These are 5 essential reads. Now to get into the ones that are on my TBR. Goodness gracious, this video is going to be long. The first is a collection of short stories that I've always been meaning to read, and that is A Manual for Cleaning Women by Lucia Berlin. I'm just going to hold that up there because I think that's a brilliant, brilliant cover. I don't know much about how to explain each of these stories because I think she was very eclectic, and a lot of these stories go all over time. But in the back, it says that her stories are inspired by her childhood in various Western mining towns, her glamorous teenage years in Santiago, Chile, 3 failed marriages, a lifelong problem with alcoholism, her years spent in Berkeley, New Mexico, and Mexico City, and the various jobs she later held to support her writing and her 4 sons. So I think all of that sounds amazing. Everyone I know who has read Lucia Berlin is like, Russell, why haven't you? So this is a collection of short stories by Lucia Berlin, A Manual for Cleaning Women, and it is most certainly on my TBR, staring me in the face. The next is, you guys know, I read and loved The Great Believers last year by Rebecca Makkai. And when I was talking to a bunch of people, and mostly Simon Savage, he told me, well, you must read The Borrower by Rebecca Makkai. So I went out and I got it. Actually, I bought all of Rebecca Mackai's books. Just happened that way. And this is the story of Lucy, who is a children's librarian who has a special relationship with a boy named Ian, who has a hard home life. And one day she comes into the library to find out that Ian has run away, that is hiding in the library, and they get in a car and they go on an adventure together. The way that the book describes it is Lucy allows herself to be hijacked by Ian. The odd pair embarks on an improvised road trip from Missouri to Vermont with ferrets and an inconvenient boyfriend thrown in their path. Everyone I know who has read Rebecca Mackai's The Borrower has told me I'm going to love it as much, if not more, than The Great Believers, which doesn't seem possible to me, but I think quickly Rebecca Makkai might become one of my favorite authors. And now that I own everything she's written, because I bought it all, I should probably get to it. The next book is a buddy read that I'm going to be doing with my friend Kendra Winchester, probably next weekend or the week after, I can't quite remember, and that is the fantasy series or fantasy novel, The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I don't know a whole lot about this. I do know that it is a Chinese-inspired fantasy series about a young woman who is from a lower class, or is actually sort of like a victim of a war, I believe, and she winds up passing a test to be accepted into an academy that no one thinks that she would ever be able to do. And when she gets there, because of who she is and where she comes from, she deals with, as you guys know, prejudice, and also she turns out she has a special affinity for a magic thought lost. The author is fantastic. She is young. She's studied Chinese history. She has a BA from Georgetown, and she is currently a graduate student in the United Kingdom on a Marshall Scholarship. This is her debut novel. I love her style and her author photograph. So I have really wanted to read this. I think that we need to support young writers. Absolutely. And I have really enjoyed Asian-inspired fantasy fiction for the last couple of years. It's just really blown my mind. So I'm super excited to get to The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. Okay, the next book is a debut novel that just came out, I want to say in January, that my friend Chris at Chris's Bookish Cauldron, as he was reading it, said to me, Russell, this book is brilliant. And that is The Farfield by Madhuri Vijay. And I'm going to read you guys what's going on in this one because I don't know a ton about it. But it says, in the wake of her mother's death, Shalini, a privileged, naive, and restless young woman from Bangalore, sets out for a remote Himalayan village in the turbulent north region of Kashmir. Certain that the loss of her mother is somehow connected to the decade-old disappearance of Bashir Ahmed, a charming Kashmir salesman who frequented her childhood home, she is determined to track him down. But as soon as Shalini arrives, she is confronted with Kashmir's politics, as well as the tangled history of the local family that takes her in. A life in the village turns volatile, and old hatreds threaten to erupt into violence. Shalini finds herself forced to make a series of choices that could hold dangerous repercussions for the people she has come to love. Does that not sound absolutely fantastic? And then the first line is, I am 30 years old, and that is nothing. Yeah, yeah. So if Chris says read it, that doesn't want you to make you want to read it. This description, this cover, everything about The Farfield by Madhuri Vijay should get this on your list because it is certainly on mine. Last but not least is a book that comes out this month, and it comes out on March 19th. And I want to thank Scout Press for sending me this early copy of Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. Now, let's just take a moment and enjoy this fantastic cover. Queenie is a young woman. She's 25. She is Jamaican and British, and she lives in London, and she sort of lives between two cultures, but never fits into either one of them. She breaks up with her long-term boyfriend and basically makes choices that lead into sort of her analyzing her life and everything that is going on in it. I think you will oftentimes just stop to look at this cover. The book is blurbed by Kit DeWall, which sort of does everything for me. Because you know I love Kit DeWall. My Name is Leon is one of my favorite books from the last couple years. And I think that this book just sounds amazing. So, there you go. This is Queenie by Candice Carty-Williams. It comes out on March 19th, 2019. And it is from Scout Press. And thank you so much, Scout Press, for sending me this early copy. So that is 10 books that hopefully wind up on your TBR. So I hope you got out your pen, your paper, or your Goodreads and wrote them all down. And I hope you will share with me what books that you think fit these two categories. What would you say for yourself is an essential read by a woman writer that you think everyone should have read by now? Or what's a book that you're really excited to read by a female novelist coming forward? As always, if you are a return subscriber to my channel, thank you so much. I appreciate it very, very much. If you're new to my channel, I hope that this video inspires you to stay around and check out some of my other videos. As always, until next time, I wish you a happy reading, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye!